Steves of Reddit, how do you keep yourselves from saying, good Stevening when greeting friends or co-workers in the evening? Steves should start doing this, but only to other Steves. It will be like the Jeep Wave thing. I tried to get my dad, a Steven with a doctorate, to try this sometime. Dad, when someone asks you if it's Steven with a PH, you have to reply no, PhD. He didn't find the humor in this. My dad's name was Steve, and on the 24th it will have been 5 years since his passing. If he were still alive, I'd be running to my parents' room now and show this to my dad. He would have loved this. No, shit no man. I believe you get your ass kicked saying something like that, man. God help the soul that speaks those words to me. I know of a rather angry and aggressive Steven. I need to ask him this tomorrow and see if I survive. Christmas Steve. New Year's Steve. Beaming face with smiling eyes. I am Steve. I'm not a Steve, but this is how I'll be greeting any Steves from now on, laughing face. I have a co-worker named Bjorn, and he constantly says good Bjorning. I used to work with a guy who had the last name Corning, and I said morning, Corning more times than I'd ever like to admit. He was always very nice about it. Similarly, Bjorns of Reddit, how do you keep from saying good Bjorning when greeting friends or co-workers in the morning? Well, as a fellow Steve, I make it a point to switch it up every now and then. Some days it's a simple hey there, or what's up, dude, and other times I like to go all out with a greetings, earthling. You never know what kind of reaction you'll get, but it definitely keeps things interesting. It's easy when it's never occurred to me. I was in a meeting with my manager Steve, and in the middle of it a chap comes in from our IT contractors to fix something. Extends his hand and introduces himself with Steve. My boss takes his hand and says Steve. He turns to me with a wave and I greet him with a nod and an affirmative. Steve. My boss gestures at me and says Steve. The man confirms elatedly Steve. And I nod again with Steve. We chuckle and go back to our meeting while the IT chap is setting himself up at a deck nearby. Several minutes later my boss lets out a snort and is barely containing himself like an excited school kid. Steve, the contracts manager who sometimes uses our site, has just come through the door. He walks over and greets my boss and I with nods and Steve, we return with obligatory and excitable Steves. He turns to his usual desk and points at the IT dude. My boss explains Steve. He quizzically says Steve. I nod energetically, trying to contain myself. Steve. The IT bloke, using his Steve instincts, knows exactly what's up and extends his hand with a Steve, which got returned with a chuckling Steve. When the IT bloke had finished and went to leave, he did the ceremonial honors of nodding at each of us with a Steve and return. Steve, Steve. Steve, Steve. Steve, Steve. Fun to see a couple of right senior blokes regress immediately to school children. I spell it with a PH, so I say good evening. I opt to keep my name strictly reserved for when I invite the ladies to explore my hairway to Steven. If someone ever told me good Stevening, they'd never be seen again. Finally, someone asking the real questions. My name's Lorne. I'm not afraid of wishing people a good morning some mornings.